Most readers set a novel down within the first few pages, and booksellers in any busy shop watched it happen with their own eyes as hands leafed, paused, and quietly returned a volume to the stack. You saw the same habit in yourself at the counter, or by lamplight. You read a page, perhaps two, and if nothing pressed upon your attention, you drifted to another book as easily as you reached for a different pen. The curious part was that many openings looked busy on the surface. Names, weather, a carriage arriving, a servant with a message. Yet they carried no weight that made you need the next sentence. The common mistake was not that nothing occurred, but that nothing seemed to be at risk. And without risk, even an event sounded like a report. You might begin with a figure waking, dressing, remarking upon the day, meeting a neighbor, exchanging pleasantries, and only later, 10 pages later, allowing something to threaten or tempt or force a decision. By then, the reader had already formed a private judgment that your story moved by permission rather than necessity. Another frequent opening misstep hid in your choice of company. You introduced a person who never mattered again, simply because he stood nearest to the door of your imagination. You gave him a name, a habit, a few lines of talk, and the reader learned the wrong face first, like being presented to an acquaintance at a dinner, only to discover the host had not yet entered the room. That produced a second confusion. The reader began arranging expectations around the wrong character. And when you finally brought in the true center of the tale, you asked the reader to unlearn what you had just taught. It also happened when you opened in the wrong place entirely, not in time, but in pressure. You began before the trouble began, before any choice carried cost, because you wished to be clear or orderly or fair to the past. Yet stories did not unfold like account books. They advanced when a person could not keep living as yesterday. That was why burying the action felt so harmless while you wrote it. You knew what was coming, so the calm pages seemed like preparation. For the reader, preparation without a visible demand looked like delay. The mechanism was simple and merciless. Attention followed questions, and questions arose from constraint. When a character wanted something and could not obtain it cleanly because of money, reputation, law, distance, family, duty, illness, weather or time, the mind began to lean forward. Remove constraint, and the mind leaned back. Many openings replaced constraint with explanation, pages of ancestry, politics, and prior grievances, as though you could purchase interest by paying in information. But information carried no charge until it altered a present decision. Even setting could be misused this way. You described the street, the river, the parlor, the smell of coal smoke or bread from the bakehouse. Yet if the place did not press upon action, if the mud did not slow the messenger, if the narrow stair did not conceal the eavesdropper, then your details read as ornament rather than circumstance. The prologue, so often excused as necessary, usually performed the same exchange. It asked the reader to attend to events whose consequence was not yet felt, and then it demanded a second beginning afterward, when the true story started. Marketing and habit helped these errors persist. You heard praise for beautiful writing in the first chapter, as if beauty alone kept a reader turning pages, and you mistook early clarity for early grip. Printers, circulating libraries, and the manners of polite criticism rewarded smooth entrances, not urgent ones. So the opening learned to behave like a visitor wiping his boots instead of a messenger bringing news that changed the house. The tension remained that you needed to orient without stalling, to intrigue without misleading, to give the reader a firm handhold without handing over the entire map. And the unsettling truth was that the first 10 pages were not the start of your world at all. They were the start of the reader's suspicion about whether your world forced anyone to act. So when you laid down your pen tonight, the unanswered question was not what you had described, but what precisely had become impossible for your character to ignore.